Hello and welcome back to the Roasted Games Podcast, Season 3. We're doing it. We've started up again. It feels really good to be back on the mics with you guys. I hope you're enjoying your beautiful summer day here in Denver. But Bill, where are you? What has changed in your situation?
Well, it's funny that you would ask. I actually have moved to from Denver.
You told me to ask, actually. I feel like you gave me that note.
Well, don't give away our secrets. So I have actually moved to warm and sunny Louisville, Kentucky, home of the cicada outbreak. 2021.
Right. I totally forgot you're right in the middle of that. Yeah.
Right in the middle. Yes, and they are everywhere, and they are so loud, like deafening loud. But it's gonna. They keep telling me it's gonna end soon. So,
so the
eventually,
cicadas do?
Yes.
We'll be gone soon.
Yeah, but I mean, they like shriek and then they like reproduce and then they die like immediately. So I mean, how long could this possibly go on? So hopefully there's not a lot of like super single cicadas that are just like, this is the life I'm gonna live. Like no, go out, date, have fun.
Well, those Gen Z or cicadas, they say, aren't marrying at the same rates that their parents did. So you never know. You never know.
So
but yeah, so you guys have big, giant new. Like you've relocated. You're in Kentucky. It's a brave new world. Everything's different. But we were just talking actually before we got on the podcast that we have restarted our local game group that you and Kirsten started just last week, and it was fun, but it definitely was a big empty hole where you guys existed, where we missed having you guys there, of course. So yeah, it feels like everything's so different right now in good ways, and you know, there's definitely we missed you guys and wished you were here, but I'm really excited. I knew you were too, to start the podcast again and just chat about some games and hang out.
Absolutely. I think we're gonna just forego some format today and just chat and nerd out. So
yeah,
I am ready.
It's where we shine.
Yes. So here, I have not had a chance yet to really find a game group or delve into much of that, but there are a couple of pretty good sized local game shops here. So I figure any place that can support a local board game shop has to have local board gamers. So I'm hoping to track them down either at the game stores or potentially just doing another meetup like we did the last time. So stay tuned on that one. But my wife and I do live with two roommates now here that are not necessarily gamers. They like to play games, and thus far have been very excited about the non-complex, non-Euro type games that I've introduced. So consider them to be on the level of a Catan player, and so we've delved into some easier, lighter games. And I'm just it's a fine art introducing somebody to this hobby without completely freaking them out, because I could easily just pull down, hey, here's Great Western Trail. Let's try this for your first go around and see what happens. And yeah, but I still have to live here, so
yeah, that's the tightrope act, because you guys are not only you've been friends before, but living together is a different situation, and then not only that, but like doing other things, hanging out and hanging with gaming together is also different. So you're navigating so many different things. So here's my question though: what are the games that you've been kind of throwing on the table to kind of engage with this? And I ask that partially because I've been playing a lot of smaller games lately, and so maybe we can compare notes here on what you've been playing versus what I've been playing, and we could cross-reference a bit.
Okay. Well, I'll go over some of their favorites so far, and actually their number one is one of your favorite games, and a game that you actually introduced me to, Qwixx.
Oh,
so
nice.
The first night we moved here, I pulled it out, and they kind of looked at it, and I'm like, no, trust me, this is fun. And so we played it a few times, and they they love it. We if we're ever looking for something just for fairly quick, fun go around where we can still talk, drink some bourbon or something, it is a great interactive game that they really enjoy. They've enjoyed Point Salad, which
cool! I just played that one recently for the first time.
I've been playing the shit out of it. It with everybody, even in Denver. Before we left, we played a whole bunch of it with lots of different people, and really, really enjoyed it. It's very light, but it's very simple to explain and easy to get to the table. It only takes 2 minutes to explain, okay, these are like the two things you can do, this or that.
Right.
And here's the reason you do this, here's the reason you do that. All right, let's play. So that's one they've enjoyed a lot. We've also, our favorite bar game is actually still our favorite bar game. We go out, we play Archer Love Letter, which
Nice,
could easily
of
be
course.
really any of the love letters, but Archer's the one we have and enjoy the most. And they've really picked up on that one. They enjoy it a lot. Another one they played the other night, which is sort of a foray into slightly denser but still fairly light. We played Century Spice Road.
Oh, okay, yeah, I haven't played that in a long time.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite gateways for newer people, and they really liked it. We played it twice, and the second time they actually asked, "Hey, can we play that again?" So that was
They're
a
hooked.
super duper big hit. So
They're hooked. You've got them hooked at this point. Now,
oh yeah, I think I got them.
yeah, they're all in for sure after that. If they're requesting playthroughs, that's a good sign.
Yes,
That's
yes.
awesome.
We also gave Marvel United a shot, which they enjoyed. It was, I think, their first real look at a cooperative game. So have you played Marvel United?
I haven't. I'm trying to remember which one that is because that came out like a couple of Marvel games came out around 2020. I'm trying to remember which one it is. All right,
was
looking
a
it up right now.
big Kickstarter, and just came out last year. The only set that's available in retail that I'm aware of is just the base set, which has just like 6 or 7 minis in it. I recently, and Marvel United X-Men just recently was on Kickstarter, ended up being Simon Games' like #1 Kickstarter of all time, money-wise. And I backed it at the full all-in level for not only X-Men, but the previous generation, the original as well, to the tune of, after shipping, about $600. So,
Oh my goodness.
so I will have several hundred Marvel minis, and I've recently started painting them, so I'll have gives me something to do.
It's gonna be done in 5 years, approximately.
Yeah. So, but I really like it. It's a fun. It's flexible in that it's very, very simple, basic gameplay, and that seems to be kind of the downside with gamers is they're like, well, there's not a whole lot to it. It's very light and it's very simple, and it is. But the different heroes each hero has their own pack of cards, their own deck of cards, so they play slightly differently. But the key here is the villains. Each villain has not only a different way in which they play the game, but even like winning conditions change with the villains. So it's almost like playing like different games with each villain, because you're trying to do completely different things, and they have very different feels, and like with both sets, both all-ins that I got, there's there's probably 80 villains, 85 villains. So there's so much replayability and so much different gameplay that way that I feel I really enjoy it. What I've played of it, which is really just the original basic set, but
Yeah, I was trying to the Marvel Champions. That's the one I always confuse those two. Which one is which? Because I've played Champions, which is not minis, it's just cards, and from what I understand, a little bit more complexity. So the minis in Marvel United, how are they used? Is it like any territory control? Like what is the kind of structure of the game? I'm less familiar with that one than I thought I was. I think
what you do is each turn you play a card from your hero deck onto the timeline.
Okay.
And it lets you do something. It could let you move. It could let you attack. It could give you a heroic action, and you use those the symbols on your card to accomplish something on that turn. And the cool thing is that it stacks. So when I place my card that maybe has like a movement and an attack, the next person places their card next to mine to continue down the timeline, and they now use the symbols on their card and the symbols on my card. So now they can move, attack, and maybe they have another attack and maybe a heroic action. So now they can use all of that to have these big combos. And you can kind of set each other up for things, especially depending on what villains and where you're going with it. You can be very strategic in making sure that the next player has what they need to do. And basically the minis, there's locations around the board, and the minis... they move around to mark your location. So typically, and then every, I think, third or fourth card played, the villain plays a card. And it's an AI. So the villain plays a card, and then it executes all of the stuff. It moves a certain amount, and then it adds like thugs and bystanders, and then it can have like what they call a BAM effect, which could be damage to a hero. It could be multiple other things, but typically it's damage to a hero. And the way the heroes take damage is they have a hand of 3 cards, and they discard a card, so their hand limit is now 2. And then they discard, and then it's now 1. So, and there are ways to heal. But basically, when you are out of cards in your hand, then your hero gets KO'd. So it lays down, and then you pick all your cards up, and you basically kind of skip a turn, but you can still get back in there. But there are villains whose whole goal is like you lose if you get KO'd, or two players get KO'd on the same turn, or something like that. Could be an end game thing. It could be that you have too many, that all the locations are filled with bystanders, or it could be all kinds of different. There's obviously a million different ways it could play, but that's the inherent card play of it. Is you play a card that has some symbols, you use those actions, the next player takes his and yours, and can kind of string it together. So then the player after him obviously would take his and then theirs. So
it looks like you're also like there's locations to move to that have abilities that to fire off there as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Or location effects, I should say.
Yes, and to use those location effects, there's usually something. There's a bad guy thing there. There's either like a trap of some sort, or there is a like henchman that you have to fight and defeat in order to clear that location to be able to use the location power.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that looks really fun. I'm watching kind of a little synopsis right now, just an overall on how it's played. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like this structure looks really interesting. It does look very similar to Legendary Champions in the way that I love the Marvel superhero games that really incorporate the henchman structure well. I think Dice Masters does that in a good way. But yeah. So is it also like, if the henchmen take over an area, can you be locked out of areas, or?
No, but if a henchman goes to be added from a BAM effect or from a villain card, and they can't be added because there's not enough spots, then there's an overflow effect, and every villain has a different overflow effect. So
interesting. You
could take damage. You could advance up on the fear track or whatever. So there's all kinds of different things that can happen, and that's where these unique villains make this such an interesting game to me, is that there's so many different ways to play it. Just playing the Red Skull over and over is like kind of would be a snooze fest. Once you've played him a couple of times, there's no replayability there. But you make it through 80 villains, and by the time you get back to the first one, it's brand new again. So
right.
And that's assuming you're playing Marvel United 24/7, which I probably will not be.
The minis look super cool, though. I like the style. It's very what's that?
They're chibis.
Yeah, they're like kind of like that. Proportions are very kind of like stubby, cartoony style.
Yeah, they're chibi style, which is like in the style of like the same as Arcadia Quest and those games.
Yeah. I love it's a very cute style, and I love the way that villains look in that style, because it looks like,
right?
I mean, they're threatening, but they're also just so cute.
Badasses, yeah.
Yeah, Red Skull's just like, look at that guy. I just want to pinch your crazy looking cheeks. Oh, Crossbones, what are you doing? Come on, buddy.
Hey.
Cool. Yeah, that's one I haven't checked out before. I felt like, because that one came out in 2020 and Marvel Champions came out right before it. I feel like, is there a third one that came out right around there too? I can't remember. I think what I'm thinking of is like Dice Masters had like a bunch of Marvel releases.
There is another Marvel game. It's Marvel. It's actually substantially more complex. It's also mini based.
Yeah.
Something protocol. Yeah. Something protocol.
Yeah.
Crisis Protocol.
Crisis Protocol. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's much more serious looking, and from my understanding, substantially more advanced, and considerably more expensive. So.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of expensive,
and that's only it's only 2 players too.
I just backed, and it just literally while we're online here, it collected my pledge for the Witcher board game.
Ooh.
$8 million this thing just closed at.
Oh my God. Are you serious? That's insane.
Yeah. $8 million.
Wow. I am astounded. Like, I remember reading The Witcher, the original book, like the Last Wish book, which is like the first one, like a long time ago, and it was like, yeah, it's pretty good. And then I knew they made a video game, or I played the video game, and I was like, this is great. I am astounded how much The Witcher has caught on. Like, it's crazy to me. Is it Henry Cavill that's driving this? I'm sure it's a big part of it, but it's just astounding to me that this sort of obscure artistic IP has suddenly blown up in the world, is suddenly obsessed with this genre. It's really fascinating to me, but that's cool. I could see that being a fun game. Do you know, what are the details about the game that you know?
It's The Witcher Old World, which it's a minis game. It's a big sprawling minis game. My understanding is you are a Witcher, and you're going around and fighting monsters, training, leveling up, getting I think like prestige kind of things for fighting these monsters. And there's different I believe there are campaigns available in some of the mini expansions and stuff, and there's a lot of stuff. I didn't go all in on this one. I just did like the deluxe edition, so I got the minis and the stretch goals. But there's a lot of stuff. It looks like it would take a lot of playing to get through it all. So I more got it for the collectability and just the fun. I like minis, and I think it'd be really neat. I'm not under I'm not under the impression that anyone in this house will play it with me. But
not yet.
No, not yet.
You got time to get them up to that level.
Speaking of, guess what I have coming in the mail tomorrow if FedEx's tracking is correct?
Ooh, so many things. I don't know. What do you have coming?
I have Dwellings of Eldervale.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. That is very exciting.
the deluxe edition. I played it with Jeff, and I really, really liked it. It's sprawling and just it's awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. Have you played it? Jeff has.
I haven't. I remember you telling me about it, and I think soon after that, the group, that was kind of right around the time when our group sort of like disbanded to a degree.
Yeah.
Or we had to re-disband. I guess we were trying again, and then we had to disband. But no, I remember you telling me about it. That's one I definitely would like to check out. It sounded super, super cool, and it plays up to like 5, isn't that right? So you can get a pretty good player.
I think it plays.
Player group?
It plays up to 5. Yeah, it also has a really well developed, very, very highly thought of solo mode, which I have been looking for very much in heavy games now. Is good solo modes. So I'm looking forward to setting that up and giving it a try. But that is, I'm really looking forward to that. And the box is gigantic. It's like bigger than Gloomhaven sized box.
Oh, damn.
It's ridiculous.
Kingdom Death Monster size-ish kind of, yeah.
It's big. It's real, real big.
Oh, cool. I'll have to ask him to bring that. Or actually, that sounds like one we'd probably have to schedule a separate playthrough to do. But Jeff brought another one the other night, and we didn't get to play it, but he was telling me about it. It's going to be very anticlimactic because I can't remember the name, but I will next time we record.
Is it Die of the Dead?
No, Die of the Dead was one he mentioned, but it's a 2-box. He got the main box and then an expansion, and it's another kind of fantasy structure. I will just not even trying to remember all the details here, and keep it for next time. But it's one that sounded really, really cool, and I think we're going to try to get it played next group. But anyway, yeah, speaking of Kickstarters and fun games that I'm looking forward to trying, I feel like Jeff has received some, and I think Aaron too, that over the next few game nights, hopefully we'll get them to the table and try some stuff.
Yeah, but, I think Aaron has Lost Ruins of Arnak.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, which looks so good, and I would love to give that a shot at some point.
Yeah, I am excited to jump into. I have been very resistant to trying to do Kickstarters off and the quarantine because I feel like I'm losing control. But what I have done, actually, a Kickstarter that I have received recently is Burgle Bros 2. That's what I've been playing quite a lot of. Speaking of Kickstarters that ordered before quarantine and finally arrived. And that has been a blast. I have really fallen in love with this game. It's a really good example of a game that it turned into a complete redesign. I was reading an article that interviewed Tim Fowers about it, and he started talking about the process of redesigning it after Burgle Bros 1. And I guess if people don't know, Burgle Bros is a cooperative game by Tim Fowers, who is kind of like Ryan Laukat, or as I call him, Ryan Laukat, who makes his own games and designs and publishes. Fowers doesn't do his own art as Ryan does, but he's kind of a one-man sort of shop. Of course, there's a lot of working with other people, but he's the main guy. And so he made this game that's a cooperative heist game, sort of set in a 1960s universe or art style at least. And you are just a team of thieves with all your little different abilities and identities, and you're trying to infiltrate these buildings and rob the safe, and then escape to the roof where you're flown away with a helicopter. The second one takes place in a casino, and he and Ryan were. He said he got the idea to do the casino from Ryan, and that's where it started. But he was talking about the process, and that when he got the idea to do a casino, he ended up just sort of repurposing the rooms from the first game into the next game, and the response was that it just didn't feel like a casino. And so what started as just kind of a Burgle Bros in a casino ended up being like a complete redesign. So he actually went back and redesigned all the rooms specifically for the theme, and so it turned into a fully redesigned game structure based on the original structure of Burgle Bros. So, anyway, yeah,
Burgle Bros?
I have. I played it a few times. My friend Alex, it's a game he introduced me to, and he really likes it. I really liked it a lot. I think it's a really good co-op game, and it does a great job of having kind of individual abilities, but also the each person kind of feels like they've got, the way that a good co-op does. They've got their own choices. They don't feel like there's one right thing they could do in this specific moment. But it can be a bit long. My biggest complaints about the game is just it can feel like it sort of drags on a bit depending on the situation and how it's playing and who you're playing it with. It can be kind of a hit and miss one. Burgle Bros 2, what Tim Fowers is, he really streamlined the gameplay, and so it's a shorter, tighter game. And he made some changes about how the game works, despite being the main basic structure of you're a heist team, you're going in to rob a safe, and then you find the treasure, and then you have to escape with the treasure. In the second game, the treasure is its own end game scenario. So in both games, you get the treasure is different each time, or it can be, and each treasure is going to be represented by a card or something you have to keep with you. But in the second game, you actually draw an end game scenario card. So in the first game, what you have to do is you get the treasure, and then you always have to get up to the roof and get flown away by a helicopter. And playing that a bunch of times, to me, it just started kind of feeling redundant. Like each treasure is a little different, but they don't really do that much different things. Like there's only a couple ones that are different once you get them. Like there's one where there's a dog, and so there's a little bit of comedy there where this dog, whoever has the dog has to roll a die each turn, and if a certain result comes up on the die, the dog jumps out of their arms and runs away, and you have to go re-catch it. And it's this little chihuahua. And so there's some fun stuff that first game does, but I think that's the most fun treasure in the first game. The second game, each treasure or each thing that's in the safe is different and has a different end game scenario, so it's not always about escaping through the roof. The one that I really think is great is there's a car. You have to actually steal a car that's in the safe because there's a big Vegas casino safe, I guess, that can fit a whole Mini Cooper in there, and so you have to drive the car from the safe and drive through the second floor window to get out and escape. And so there's all these like insane scenarios that have to be fulfilled. There's a Bengal tiger that you have to. So I haven't played that one, so I'm not sure how that one goes. There are just all sorts of like crazy zany scenarios, and so it kind of makes a second stage of the game that I felt was a little missing in the first one. Whereas the first one is you get the safe and then you escape each time. It's sort of the same thing. It's not bad by any means, but the second one is you get the safe, which is the first challenge, and then the second challenge pops up after you get the safe to figure out how you end the game. And it's very dynamic, and the replayability I think is a lot higher. So I've been playing this with whoever wants to play it. My family really likes it. I've been trying to introduce it to other people, but it's just a really great redesign and a great structure. I have to say Tim Fowers did a superb job in taking a classic game and kind of restructuring it, redoing it to make it feel very, very different, but also the familiar structure.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's also it's just a really good example of just a couple kind of in the redesign process. He definitely like very considerate about things that were maybe some hang-ups or I don't want to say complaints, because Burgle Bros is a very, very good game, but I maybe some slowdowns of the process in the first
complaints.
Game. Oh, I got complaints. I'm sure there were complaints.
People complain about anything.
That's true. But he really seemed to really take those complaints seriously and examine them and figure out ways to streamline them in the way that you could almost see the first game in more pass-throughs becoming this game. Not that it felt like he just stopped to give up in the first game, but it definitely feels like this scenario makes more sense. So in both games, there are these guards in the first game and then bouncers in the second game because it's a casino. Mm-hmm. And they have a certain movement speed. It's tiles, so they're kind of moving around the game board, wandering around, trying to figure out, or they just have a track that they're going around. They have a destination they're walking to slowly, and if they come across you, of course, they are suspicious and they sort of mark you. In the first game, the guards slowly, incrementally increase speed. So whenever certain things happen, suddenly they'll start moving more, one tile more, progressively more and more, because they just sort of start realizing that something's weird here tonight in this bank or whatever, and we're going to have to
start running?
Basically, yeah. They start a soft jog at first, I guess, as they sort of just like,
now we sprint.
Little shuffle step. Yeah, exactly. So you imagine this older guard just like, all right, George, pick up the pace. Let's go. Someone's robbing the safe. But in the second game, the guards never increase movement. It's always static, but the way they move is it's always consistent, but it's a higher starting rate than the first game, and so it already feels like you're a little more under pressure. But I like the idea that they're kind of wandering around this casino in a bit more of a tighter design. And they are not alarms that you set off. There's commotions. And so the bouncers aren't, they're not running to the commotion, to the alarm. They're, the bouncer's job, of course, is to make it look like, oh, nothing's wrong, everybody. This is all normal in the casino. But I'm going to walk over here and talk to this person in a stern manner for no reason. This old lady who, for some reason, is making a scene. And so the theme just feels a little more engaging, at least to me, that these bouncers are wandering around and just sort of this big goon is sidling up to you being like, what's the matter, old lady? Why don't you just come with me for a minute and we can talk in the back room? So anyway, just long story short, just a really good example of tightening structures to make a game itself tighter as a timeline and its time to be played, but also feeling more appropriate for the theme. Is kind of a side benefit and bonus. So I can't really recommend this game enough. It's a really great cooperative game. And what's great about Faura's game, of course, is that they are never just Kickstarters and then they're done. He Kickstarts it and then they're available on his website. So you can definitely go out and grab this one if it interests you. But I would highly recommend Burgle Bros 2.
Okay. Well, that is a sterling recommendation. So that is on my list.
There you go.
So I thought of another game that I played with the roommates that they really enjoyed. And
oh, great!
I really enjoy as well, and it's just a kick-ass game. It's Truffle Shuffle.
I have never played that game.
I really, really like it. It's actually, from my understanding, I think it's the same design team that did Point Salad.
Oh, okay.
And it's very easy. It's a card drafting game. It's a set collection. It's very easy to explain, simple to follow, but there is some decent strategy in it. It's not mind melting, but you definitely have to pay attention. So it's and there's a lot of fun choices in there, and it's a good light filler game that I've played now probably a dozen times and have really, really enjoyed.
Truffle Shuffle. Isn't that is that a dance? I feel like I've heard that phrase before. It can't be in reference to the game.
It's not in reference to Goonies. It was not named after Goonies.
Oh, that is exactly where I've heard it. Yes, okay.
Shuffle.
That is exactly what it is. I'm like, where have I heard that?
Yes, it has nothing to do
with
an
overweight child. That's where I've heard it.
Nothing to do with Chunk. So,
you know what I want, Chunk. You know what I want to see. I don't know why.
Come on, guys. Let me in. Do it.
Do it.
Fine.
Oh, poor Chunk. Oh, the 80s and when teasing fat kids was encouraged, not even just a practice, but encouraged broadly by Hollywood.
Yeah. It was apparently quite funny.
So explain, I'm looking at the structure of Truffle Shuffle, and it looks like, so there's a pyramid of, you know what it kind of looks like to me? Is it looks like Seven Wonders Duel board.
Yes.
Have you ever played that one? Yeah,
yes.
It looks very similar to that. Is it kind of similar in structure where you're slowly revealing cards through this pyramid?
Yes. So the cards have, they have two sides, obviously, because, they're cards, and we live in a three-dimensional world. But they're face up, and then face down, and then face up, and then face down, and face up, face down. And so the face down ones, you know what the suit is, you just don't know what's on the other side. So there's cards between 1 and 5. And 5s are more common than 4s, are more common than 3s, are more common than 2s, are more common than 1s. And then there's like special action cards that let you like draw 2 or let you change color on a card or change kind of make other cards wild and things like that. So the idea is that you are collecting cards in your hand. You're drafting them, collecting them in your hand, and then turning them in certain sets for points. Basically, poker hands. So you turn in you could turn in a run of four cards that don't match in suit, and you might get, like 4 points or whatever. But if they did match in suit, maybe it'd be like 8 points. And then there you do a large round of 5 cards, and then you could also do sets. But with the numbers, the sets that you turn in are dependent on what number the card is. So you have to turn in 5 5s, or 4 4s, or 3 3s, or 2 2s, or 1 1.
Okay.
So then you're turning these in. You're collecting points from the big pile of like cardboard coins, and so those end up being your victory points. And the struggle is that when you get to the end of the game, you pull the last card, and there's actually 3 rounds, so this will happen 3 times. So when you get to the end of a round, you only get to carry 2 of your cards in your hand over to the next round. Well, I think it actually depends on how many players are playing, but it's like the number of players. So in a 3-player game, you'd only be able to keep like 3 cards. So you may be collecting, like you may have 7 or 8 cards in your hand waiting for this big payday, and you're not getting the card you need, and then somebody pulls the last card, and you have to just discard for nothing, 6 cards out of your hand. So the idea is you want to obviously get as many points as possible, but do not put yourself in a situation where you're waiting too long and you're not going to be able to turn in sets before the round ends.
Interesting.
So it's there are a couple little things like that are in play that it's very interesting. I really, everyone I've played it with has really enjoyed it. So
cool.
And I played it. I had it in Denver too, so I played it with like Larry and Julie, and I played it with my son Joey. I played it with my roommates here. Everybody's really liked it. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out too. Let's see. I was going to recommend one. Let's see. Similo. Have you played Similo before?
How do you spell that?
Similo.
No.
That's another really light one, but I was just thinking of it's one I was introduced to recently, and it's kind of like it's a very light game. I think it's like rated like at 1 on BGG. But the way it works is you buy a deck, and the deck is themed of something. Like I think the original ones were like history, fables, or myths. They came out with recently animals. And I think they have 2 animal decks. Like I'm not sure. Oh, zoo animals and like wild animal, or like I don't know what else would be the other one. Wild animals, which also would be zoo animals. But anyway, you can mix and match these 2. But basically, what it is you have a grid of these cards are laid out, and they have they're very like cartoony. They're very like cartoony looking, and so like the animals deck, of course, there's just any animals you'd imagine. So there's like woodpecker, a sheep, a wolf, a turtle, a beaver, a skunk, a chicken, a dog, blah blah blah. And on the back of them, they have a very abstract background. It's usually looks like sort of kind of like vector art on the background, and then the animal itself is kind of a characterish painted character. With bright colors and very quirky designs. And the whole point of the game is there's a guesser, and then there is the clue giver. And the clue giver cannot speak. And they draw a card to figure out which animal is the active animal in the grid. And the grid is a 4x3 grid. And so
is this the one where like you have to make the face that the character's making?
No,
to try and guess which one it is. Okay, I saw some...
that. God, that sounds really familiar though.
Sorry,
we should figure out what that one
like
is.
That.
Yeah. So this one is you have it through a series of clues. You do have to guess which card is the active card through the rounds, but you have a series of clues. The clue giver has a deck of cards, and they have to play. They have a deck of cards, and they're going to draw cards into their hand, and they have to play 1 card each round into a pile that is similar or different. and it over the course of a series of rounds. So the first round they're going to play a card, and let's say I don't know, they play whatever. They play a chicken, and the active card. Well, you don't know what the active card is, so they play it to similar. So the guesser has to guess. Okay, so this card is similar to something, the card that I eventually need to guess. So they have to, each round, eliminate cards based on that clue, a similar or different. So they might get rid of things that aren't a bird if a chicken was played. Each round, they have to get rid of more and more cards, so it becomes really difficult. I think it's like, first round, they just have to get rid of one of the cards from the grid. Second round, after the clue is played, they have to get rid of like 3 cards from the grid. Third round is like four or 5 cards from the grid. It really quickly ramps up. And so it's this really interesting, very silly, fun game of like trying to suss out what they think this card means. It kind of reminds me of Mysterium or other games where there's just a silent clue giver, but it's very fast compared to those games and just very silly, and you can play it as teams, but the clues aren't necessarily for what the animal is. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that because I played a bird that the animal is a bird. It could be that the background has a reference point in it, or it could be the facial expression of the animal is tilted one way or the other. So there's all these like rabbit holes you can go down of like, what do they want me to see in this? And it just becomes a very silly game, and it's very light, but it is so satisfying to win this game because the second to last round, you have to get rid of, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like 3 or 4 cards. But the round after that, you only have to get rid of 1, of course, to differentiate between the one that is or is not the remaining one. And if you can get to that last round, it is so satisfying to be able to then guess it right. But it is still a really hard decision between the last 2 because these last 2 are the best options you have. And, of course, their hand of cards that they have to give the clues with isn't going to be perfect. They can't put down it's the dog card, and it has to be like, once again, they've got to be like boring their eyes into your brain, being like, don't misinterpret this clue. All right, similar. And then you just go in this whirlwind of second guessing your own initiative or initial responses. It's a very silly, fun game, but I got a real kick out of it. And they have different series, so you can pick up packs basically of different themes, and you can also commingle these themes, which makes it zanier in a different way. But it's a really fun one if you're looking for a light kind of filler game that's pretty approachable and very fun.
Yeah, that's
similar.
Looking at pictures of it online. It looks silly, but yeah, that's
goofy.
very interesting. That's very interesting gameplay. No, I think I watched a review of Tom Vassal did a review of some kids game that has cards laid out in a grid like that, and it's all either people or animals or whatever, and you have to like try and make a facial expression like the card you're trying to get them to guess.
Yeah. I do remember. Yes, I do remember that review. What is that game?
I don't know.
I'll have to look that up too.
Ridiculous.
But I totally forgot about. Yeah, I remember watching the review being like, "Huh, interesting." That is definitely the right group type of game. Like, that is not going to play with all groups.
Yes, I will not be playing that game, but somebody will. Good on them. Yeah.
Yeah, Simula is pretty good. I thought that one was a pretty fun one. You know what? Actually, we just played recently too, and right before you guys left, actually, the last kind of game get together we had, you introduced me to Guillotine. I really liked that game, and I just recently played it again, and I have to say, I think Guillotine is going to be it's one I pick up because that is really fun. Guillotine is an impressive game that I didn't realize how old it was, but it holds up. It really holds up.
It's super old, but yeah, it does hold up. I like it a lot too. I've only played it a handful of times now, but it has to be what inspired Parade. It has to be.
Yes. Oh, for sure. There's definitely got to be influence there. Absolutely.
Like there's no chance the Parade guy's like, I've never played Guillotine.
Never heard of it? Don't want to hear about it.
What is that? Yeah.
I'm just really impressed. Like, it's over 20 years old at this point, and I just was like, it really feels like it was designed in the last few years. Like, it could have been. Just the way it holds up, the abilities of the cards are really well designed to interplay off each other, and the replayability is really good. So I was very impressed. Wizards of the Coast and Paul Peterson.
I agree. I think the artwork doesn't hold up very. It looks like an old game.
It very much does. Yeah.
I would love to see like a reprint or potentially retheme, but reprint for sure that maybe has some updated art. But yeah, it's a really fun game. It definitely everything works well together. It's very well balanced.
Yeah, I do. I was trying to think of other games that have that structure outside of Parade, and I guess Port Royal is another one that's kind of got that tableau. It's not anything like Guillotine, but sort of that tableau idea of cards being laid out.
Which one?
Port Royal. Have you played that one?
Yes. Actually, that's on my list as the game that I was about to mention next. I've played Port Royal in the last couple of months. I've played Port Royal probably 20 times. When the last week that I was in Denver, we were over at Larry and Jen's a lot, and we would play Port Royal like constantly over and over again. It was I really, really, really like that game a lot.
I did too. I wasn't familiar with it until just recently, but that's another one that 2014 is when it came out, and it just feels feels very modern.
I believe the one I have is the Steve Jackson Games ones that was reprinted in 2015, but I think it's even older than that. Like I think it's like
oh really okay
originally like 2010 or 2012.
Interesting.
It's a reasonably old game as well, but yeah, just the push your luck element is just goes over so well. It really does that. Do I put another one out? Do I put another one out, or do I just take this? But I could it could be enough to get me 2 cards.
Right.
What do I do? Do I play it safe? Do I go for the big payday? And it's that. Yeah, it really appeals to that fun sense of pressure lock. I really like it.
It definitely feels like an older game that was ahead of its time for the way it does the push your luck structure. With the throwing in of the being able to fight off pirates, the ways that you bust, of course, the way that busting affects other players, where you might want to bust to give them less options versus, what is it? I think you can get 4 ships of different colors, and that suddenly is a big payout. It's not a point salad game, but it just feels like so many options. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do 4 of each color or of each country, then you can take 2 of the cards from the tableau. If you get all 5 without duplicates, then you can take 3, which can be a huge payday to be able to get 3 cards. Oh yeah,
big swing.
Yeah, especially if there's some expensive ships out there which obviously there would be at least 5. So you get some big like 4 coin cards and then buy some of those really expensive. Like you could get it's huge. But then you're right. At the same time, if you know that there's enough cards out there that somebody else is going to get what they want, it might not always be the worst thing in the world to bust.
Yeah.
And just wipe it.
It can
clean.
be a good strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was really impressed with that one too. I definitely it's kind of funny actually now that the kind of the themes of the games that I've really been playing lately and it sounds like you too for a variety of reasons. I've been playing a lot of like lighter games, and so it's been fun to rediscover like especially these old ones that I really wasn't aware of except maybe in name only. And playing them today, it's just like, man, this is so solid. I am really, really impressed with some of these games and how well they hold up, and the fact that I could see influences. Well, we talked about Parade kind of being influenced with by Guillotine. A lot of influences of modern game structure with some of these things. And Port Royal is probably one of the best push your luck little games that I've ever played.
Oh yeah,
I love the characters too. And then having the character abilities, that definitely feels somewhat ahead of its time for when this game came out. And having the character abilities and how they tie into that push your luck structure, which kind of makes this game much more than just a basic little push your luck mechanism.
Yeah, but, for sure.
But yeah, Port Royal, really, really solid. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, Port Royal could be a little more difficult right up front to explain than some of the other games we've talked about.
Sure.
The first time, you really kind of have to play it through once to really see how everything comes together, because you're
Yeah,
like, wait,
absolutely.
2 ships and what and why am I buying this and what
Right.
what is do I take one?
Yeah.
I bust. What does this mean? Why do I have a sword here? What do you mean I get to get rid of it? Can I do it now? Do I have to do it now? Like, yeah, there's like, but once you see a playthrough, you're like, oh, okay, this all makes sense. So it's I wish that I could find an easier way to kind of explain some of those elements. Otherwise, I think Port Royal might make it to the table a little more often. But if it's with somebody who's played it before, then, I mean, it's really easy to get into once you know the feel of it.
Yeah, once you get a round, or even a round, because it's played over a few rounds, even a round done, you're definitely gonna have a sense of like, okay, I get the interplay here, but it is gonna take a playthrough to really get I don't know, pre-planned, because it is, like you said, it is a game that you kind of need to know what's coming down the pike or what's available, because pushing your luck, you need to know what you're going to be pushing your luck for.
Right.
So, but man, once you do, yeah, it's quick, it's fast, and there's a surprising amount of decisions to make in such a small game, but there's none that really like hold you to like chewing your fingernails. Oh, what's the right one here? It's just like, you got a couple. They're both probably good. Make a decision.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Solid game. Well, no, who designed that one? That was
Agreed.
Alexander Pfister. Mr. Pfister.
Mr.
Did it again.
Pfister. Yeah, he did Blackout Hong Kong too, I believe.
Yeah, which we will be talking about soon.
Yes, we will get into that probably in the next one because I don't think we have that kind of time.
Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to do a deeper dive on some heavier game too, because I really enjoyed my play of that one as well.
I do have a game that did not go over well.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't necessarily hate it, but I've yet to find anyone who remotely enjoys it. And that is Beez. Beez. Beez.
I remember you showing me that one.
Yeah, and it is basically a programmed movement game. Like you start your turn, you rotate your bee to face a certain direction or whatever, and then based on what direction you face it, it moves a certain number of spaces. And then whatever you land on, if you land on pollen, you take the pollen and you try and make patterns on your board. And it was a real bomb for all of us.
So what was the downfall of it? It just where did it fall flat?
It just wasn't fun. It was. It's an interesting thought experiment, kind of like, and if you are into pattern building, and maybe if you're into program movement games, this is more engaging. But like I played it with Larry and Julie before we left, and as soon as we're done, Larry's like, "Yeah, there's a game I'm never playing again." Like, okay. He's like, "That wasn't fun at all." Like, yeah, I mean, I get it in that there is a game there, but it's not super engaging, and I don't know, it just fell flat.
Huh. Interesting. I'm trying to think of another game. I had a similar experience a while ago. I might have talked about it.
The bee miniatures are really cool. If I can repurpose those into
looks beautiful.
Another game, but.
It looks like, a well-designed game. The art style is pretty cool. So is it just that it was too predictable, or just didn't felt like the game design was like too tight or something?
It almost felt more of like an activity than a game because of the program movement. And program movement games kind of can be that way sometimes, because you do the one thing and then it sort of just like does its own thing, and whatever happens. And the only real... It has variable scoring, so you pull out different scoring cards for each game, so it's always different what you're trying to do, but you're trying to build patterns in your hive with this pollen that you're collecting. But the way you collect the pollen is you point and go, and it's just I don't know if it's just like what it is that's missing. It feels like kind of a slog. Just feels like an activity
Yeah,
more
like a
than
chore.
yeah, more than like a game. So it's just not very engaging or exciting, or it's just not fun.
Yeah, bummer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was looking forward to it too because it looked really cool.
Oh yeah, that sucks. It sounds like the talking about it. It does sound like I'd like to try it. Like the overall theme and description of like what you're trying to do sounds cool.
Yeah, and you can there's a bunch of really good reviews and rules explanations on YouTube if you want to check it out just to kind of get a better feel for it. But in practice, it did not go over well.
Huh. All right. I'm trying to think of the game I had this experience soon after quarantine started. This game that was about it was kind of like this themed as a noir game, but it's a noir game set inside of a human body, and you are white blood cells trying to suss out an infection, and he's the big bad guy. I can't remember what his name is, but you're trying to like find him, suss him out, and eliminate him from the body. And it looks so cool. Where there's like these cards
fun.
It sounds awesome, right? There's these cards you play, and the theme is very like cartoony noir, where you've got all these like fedoras on, and you're hunting down these this big bad gang member basically, but he's really just a virus, and he's sending out his minions, which are infecting these nodes, and you're supposed to go and eliminate them, and you get these sort of weapons to fight them, and you get these abilities, but you've got to corral and contain them as each part of the body gets slowly infected without it getting out of control, as at the same time you're trying to hunt down the big bad and engage with him as much as you can. And as soon as you destroy him once, he doesn't die forever. He pops back up in different ways, and it just sounded really cool. But once again, the gameplay itself was such a slog and lost in its own mechanisms and the minutia. I was playing with Aaron, and Aaron was so done with this game by the time we got to the end, and just could not contain his ire to a degree. And I was playing with Aaron and Jeff as well, and they were very frustrated with this game. And I understood them. I was kind of trying to like be like, well, but I mean, this mechanism wasn't too bad, and blah 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 blah. But I do have to admit that they were right. The game fell.
Is it a co-op game?
It is a co-op game, so already like there's a check against it for.
Why was Jeff playing a co-op game?
I think I forced it upon them. Which maybe didn't help the situation.
Do you own it?
No, it was one of the games that I couldn't. It's a French game, and it was the game I couldn't find to purchase, and so it was on Tabletop Simulator. I was going to try it out, and I was like, oh man, I can't wait to try this. I'm going to see if I can pick this game up. And after playing it, I was like, never mind. This one was. I'd like to try to support where I can after playing them virtually, but. Man, did this fall flat, and it looks so cool, and the structure looks so neat, and the gameplay itself seemed like it'd be really fun to do and very unique and different. But man, it just got a slog. It just became a slog. It just felt a game that needed another pass to tighten it up and kind of streamline certain mechanisms to make it so it just wasn't. It was basically like whack-a-mole. That's what it sort of devolved into. Is like you just created a whack-a-mole system where the strategy is the same virtually every time. So there isn't really like an exciting like what's going to happen this time. It's like, all right, you've got to cover this quadrant. I got to cover this quadrant. I've got to cover that quadrant. And then someone's got to go after the big bad or do another thing over here. So you kind of have people just sort of maintaining position, which isn't really fun, of course.
That's not fun at all.
No, not at all. And so it just felt like it really wasted all these opportunities to make this game more dynamic. And it kind of felt like another one where it just sort of was like released before the last pass was done. Or maybe there were mechanisms that the designers were really like clinging to and were very precious to them. They didn't want to restructure or refocus on them. And so anyway, once again, it just fell really flat and was very disappointing. But yeah, so I was just anyway. As soon as you brought up the bee thing and the falling flat, it just made me think of that game because they were so done with it by the time we were done playing the game. I can't even remember if we even finished the game. I think we might have just like stopped because it was taking so long.
Huh. Yeah, I might try Bees again. I might try it with the roommates here because it is a very simple game. So maybe maybe it was just wasn't meaty enough for the other guys. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I rarely like come out and I'm like, I hate this game. Like I'm normally like, oh, this game, it was fine. Except for Carcassonne. I hate Carcassonne, but
Yeah.
there's nothing redeeming about that game.
There really, really isn't.
Nothing.
Oh, Carcassonne. There you have your defenders and your large fan base, but I don't get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're up over an hour now, so
yeah, I think we did it, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, this was great. I'm so excited to be able to get back into it. I know you are too. So, to all you listeners out there, yeah, we're back in the mix. So we're going to be bringing out some new episodes and hopefully engaging with you guys. And I'm looking forward to hearing back and responses in either way. And we have mountains of content to talk about. So we'll be getting into all sorts of different things.
Yes.
But yeah, let's thank you again for listening. Let's see. How can they reach out to us these days? What's the best way? What do we want to really...
Twitter and Instagram at RoastedGames1, or you can roasted.games is our website. Email is what is it?
RoastedGamesCo at
RoastedGamesCo@gmail.com.
Colorado
or company.
Yeah, I know that's true.
Probably Colorado, but yeah.
Any one of those ways, of course, is a great way to get a hold of us. Oh, you can also go to our podcast hosting page, eavesdrop.com, and scroll down to the Roasted Games page, fill out our comment form. So many ways to get a hold of us. But we'd love to hear from you. Any tips you guys have, topics you want us to discuss, or comments on anything that we've talked about. We'd, of course, love to hear any feedback. But thank you guys for listening. We had a blast this episode, kicking it off again. We'll see you on the next episode.
See ya.